Steve Harvey had been hosting Family Feud for nearly 2 decades, and he thought he had developed the emotional capacity to handle virtually any situation that arose on stage. He had witnessed confessions that shocked audiences, heard testimonies of sacrifice that moved millions to tears, and listened to stories that had challenged everything he thought he knew about resilience, survival, and the human capacity to endure ongoing suffering. But on that overcast February afternoon in 2027, a 33-year-old woman named Andrea Williams would share struggles so relentless, so heartbreakingly comprehensive in their assault on every aspect of her life, that Steve would stop the show entirely, not pause it, but bring everything to a complete halt, calling for production to cease while he processed what he was hearing. Because what Andrea was describing wasn't a single tragedy, but rather an ongoing cascade of crises that would have destroyed most people. Yet somehow she was still standing, still trying, still fighting even though she had every reason to give up. 2 families stood ready to compete, the Johnson family from North Carolina and the Williams family from Illinois. The Williams family drew immediate attention because at their center stood Andrea Williams, an exhausted-looking 33-year-old woman with dark circles under her eyes, thin from stress, and a quality of barely suppressed desperation. She wore a simple sweater and jeans that hung loosely on her diminished frame, and she moved with the careful deliberation of someone operating on the edge of complete exhaustion. Standing with her were people who were clearly supporting her rather than being supported by her. A woman introduced as her sister Rachel, a man named Marcus who was identified as a friend, and 2 small children, ages 5 and 7. Who clung to Andrea with obvious anxiety. During the pre-interview, Andrea had been quiet and seemed to be fighting tears constantly. When asked about her life, she had said something that immediately raised concerns. "I don't know why I'm here, honestly. Someone nominated our family and my sister convinced me to come, but I feel like a fraud because I'm barely surviving, not thriving. My life isn't an inspiring story of overcoming adversity. It's an ongoing disaster where every time I start to get my footing, something else catastrophic happens. I'm drowning. Mr. Harvey is going to ask me what's going on, and I'm going to tell him the truth, which is that I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this." Andrea's sister Rachel, when asked about Andrea's situation, had spoken with tears in her eyes. "My sister is going through things that would destroy most people. Not one big tragedy, but an ongoing series of crises that just keep coming, one after another, with no break, no relief. She's a single mother of 2. She's dealing with serious health problems. She's facing homelessness. She's dealing with domestic violence aftermath. She's caring for a disabled child. It's everything, all at once, all the time. And she's still standing, still trying to take care of her kids, still fighting. But she's not okay. She's running on fumes and desperation, and I think she needs to tell someone how bad things really are because she's been suffering in silence, trying to hold it together, and it's killing her." The Williams family won their game, though Andrea contributed almost nothing, standing silently while others played. As they lined up for fast money, Andrea stepped to the podium, and Steve immediately noticed her hands were shaking violently. He approached her gently and said, Andrea, you all right?" But Andrea shook her head and said in a voice that was barely holding together, "No, Mr. Harvey, I'm not all right. I'm not all right at all, and I can't pretend to play a game when I'm barely holding my life together. I need to tell you what's happening to me, because I don't know what else to do anymore." Steve's expression shifted to one of serious concern, and he said softly, "Tell me what's going on, Andrea." The studio fell quiet. Andrea took a shaking breath and said, "I'm a 33-year-old single mother of 2 children, Jaden who's 7 and Maya who's 5. 2 years ago, I left an abusive marriage. My ex-husband was violent, controlling, and when I finally got the courage to leave him, he fought me on everything. Custody, child support, everything. The divorce took 18 months and cost me every penny I had in legal fees. When it was finally over, I had custody of the kids, but I was financially destroyed." She continued, her voice gaining strength from finally speaking the truth. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease that causes chronic pain, fatigue, and makes it very hard to work consistently. I was working as a nurse, but the lupus has made it impossible to maintain full-time work because I have flare-ups where I'm too sick to function. I've been put on disability, but disability payments are so small that they don't cover rent and basic expenses for 3 people. I'm 4 months behind on rent, and my landlord is evicting us. We're going to be homeless in 2 weeks unless I can come up with $4,000, which I don't have and have no way to get." Steve had sat down on the edge of the stage, his face showing he was already overwhelmed by what he was hearing. Andrea said, "But that's not all. My daughter Maya, who's 5, has autism. She's nonverbal and needs specialized therapy and care that costs money I don't have. My insurance through disability doesn't cover all of it, and I've been trying to navigate a system that seems designed to prevent people from getting the help they need. Maya needs occupational therapy, speech therapy, behavioral therapy. All of it costs money, and I can't afford it, so she's not getting the care she needs and she's struggling." Andrea's voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. 3 months ago, my car broke down. The transmission failed, and it would cost $3,000 to fix. Money I obviously don't have. So now I don't have a car, which means I can't get to work reliably even when I'm healthy enough to work. I can't get Maya to her therapy appointments when I can afford them. I can't get Jaden to school on time. We're relying on friends and public transportation, but it's making everything harder." She looked at Steve with eyes that held desperation and exhaustion, and said, "Last month, my ex-husband stopped paying child support. He just stopped. I reported it, but the system is so slow that it could be months before anything happens, and in the meantime, I'm supposed to feed and clothe 2 children with no support and disability payments that barely cover half our expenses. I'm going to the food bank twice a week. My kids are wearing clothes that are too small because I can't afford new ones. I'm rationing my lupus medication because I can't afford the co-pays, which means I'm sicker than I need to be." Andrea was crying now, and she said, 2 weeks ago, I tried to apply for emergency housing assistance because we're being evicted. I went to the office, I filled out all the paperwork, and I was told there's a 6-month waiting list. 6 months. We're being evicted in 2 weeks, and the waiting list for emergency housing is 6 months. So I don't know where my children are going to sleep in 2 weeks. My sister has offered to let us stay with her, but she has a 1-bedroom apartment and 3 kids of her own. There's no room for us. I'm looking at the possibility of my children and me living in a homeless shelter, or worse, living in my broken-down car that doesn't even run." Steve's face was contorted with emotion, and he said, "Andrea, how are you still standing? How are you still functioning with all of this happening at once?" Andrea said, "I don't know, Mr. Harvey. I honestly don't know. Most days I don't feel like I'm functioning. I feel like I'm drowning. I wake up every morning exhausted, in pain from the lupus, terrified about how I'm going to feed my kids that day, how I'm going to keep a roof over their heads, how I'm going to get Maya the care she needs. I cry in the bathroom when the kids can't see me. I have panic attacks. I've thought about suicide more times than I can count, because the weight of all of this is unbearable." The studio was in absolute shocked silence, many people crying. Andrea continued, "But I don't kill myself because my children need me. Jaden and Maya have already lost their father. He's out of their lives because he's abusive and because he abandoned his financial responsibilities. They can't lose their mother too, so I keep getting up every morning even though I want to give up. I keep trying to figure out how to survive another day even though I'm out of ideas and out of resources. I'm here today because my sister thought maybe, just maybe, winning some money on Family Feud could give us a little breathing room, could help us avoid homelessness, could buy Maya a few therapy sessions. But honestly, I feel like I'm here to confess that I'm failing as a mother, failing at life, failing to protect my children from the consequences of all the things going wrong." Steve raised both hands and said firmly, "Stop. We're stopping everything right now." He turned to the producers and said, "Stop filming. We're not doing a game show right now. This woman and her children need help, and we need to figure out how to provide that help." The cameras cut, and for over an hour, the studio transformed into a resource center. Steve spoke with his producers, with Fremantle media executives, with his own charitable foundation. Phone calls were made to organizations that help women fleeing domestic violence, to disability advocates, to housing assistance programs, to autism support organizations. When filming resumed, it was not to continue Family Feud but to address Andrea's situation directly. Steve sat with Andrea and said, "Andrea, I want you to hear me very clearly. What you're going through is not failure. You're dealing with chronic illness, financial devastation from escaping an abusive marriage, a child with special needs, systemic failures that are leaving you without support, and you're still here, still fighting, still trying to take care of your children. That's not failure. That's extraordinary strength in the face of circumstances that would destroy most people." He said, "Here's what's going to happen. First, your family is getting the full $20,000 from the show. Second, I'm personally paying off your rent arrears, the $4,000 you need to avoid eviction, and I'm paying your rent for the next 6 months to give you breathing room to figure things out. Third, my foundation is connecting you with organizations that specialize in helping women in your exact situation, domestic violence survivors with health issues and children with special needs. We're going to get Maya connected with therapy services and help you navigate the insurance and assistance programs. Fourth, we're going to fix your car so you have reliable transportation. And fifth, we're going to make sure you have food, clothing, and basic necessities covered for the next several months while you work on getting stable." Steve's voice was firm and passionate as he said, "The system has failed you, Andrea. You did everything right. You left an abusive marriage, you're caring for your children, you're dealing with a serious health condition, and instead of being supported, you've been abandoned by every system that's supposed to help people in your situation. That's not right, and while I can't fix the whole broken system, I can make sure you and your children aren't homeless and hungry. You deserve better than what life has been giving you, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you get the support you need." The episode that aired became one of the most impactful programs in Family Feud history. Andrea's story of relentless, ongoing struggles resonated with millions of people dealing with similar situations: single parents in poverty, domestic violence survivors, people with chronic illnesses, parents of children with special needs, people caught in bureaucratic systems that fail to help them. The response was overwhelming, with viewers donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to a fund established for Andrea and to organizations serving people in similar situations. Most significantly, Andrea's story sparked policy discussions about the failures of support systems for vulnerable populations, about how difficult it is to escape poverty even when you're trying to do everything right, about the inadequacy of disability benefits, about delays in child support enforcement, and about waiting lists for emergency housing that defeat the purpose of emergency assistance. Over the following year, Andrea's situation stabilized. With rent paid and basic needs covered, she was able to focus on her health and her children without the constant terror of homelessness. Maya began receiving consistent therapy and made significant developmental progress. Andrea found part-time work that accommodated her health limitations. The financial breathing room allowed her to address problems systematically rather than constantly triaging crises. In a follow-up interview 1 year later, Andrea said, "A year ago, I was on the verge of homelessness with my 2 children, drowning in ongoing crises, considering suicide because I couldn't see any way forward. Today we have stable housing, Maya is in therapy, I'm working within my health limitations, and we're not just surviving, we're starting to actually live. The difference is that I was given the support I needed at the moment I needed it most." Steve Harvey and his team didn't just give me money, they gave me time, they connected me to resources, they took away the immediate crisis so I could focus on long-term solutions. Every person in a situation like mine needs that kind of support, but most never get it, because the systems that are supposed to help are broken or overwhelmed. I got lucky that I had a platform to tell my story, and that Steve Harvey has the resources to help. But millions of people are in situations just like mine with no platform and no help coming, and they're drowning just like I was. That's what needs to change.